The refugee station was cold and loud. Metal walls hummed with the sound of machines. Lights flickered sometimes. The air smelled like medicine and fear. Una walked through the children's wing with slow steps. She was a xenobiologist, a person who studied alien life. But here, on Corin 7, she was something else. She was someone who tried to help broken children feel safe again. The Villani were a beautiful species. They looked like cats, but they walked on two legs. Their fur was soft, and their eyes were large and golden. They had lived on a green world full of forests and rivers. But that world was gone now. The Krath Dominion had burned it. Millions died. The survivors ran to the stars, looking for safety. Now they lived in places like this station. Cold, crowded, afraid. Una stopped walking. She heard something. A small sound, like breathing. She looked around the room. Medical beds stood in rows. Most were empty. The children had been moved to a larger area. But one bed still had sheets on it. She bent down and looked underneath. Two golden eyes stared back at her. The cub was small. Very small. Her fur was gray and dirty. Her ribs showed through her skin. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to disappear. Una felt her heart break. She had seen many children on this station. Some cried. Some screamed. Some sat in silence and stared at nothing. But this one was different. This one was hiding like a hunted animal. Una wanted to help. She raised her hand slowly, meaning to show she was friendly. Maybe she could wave. Maybe she could reach out gently. The cub jolted. Her whole body shook with fear. She pressed harder against the wall. Her eyes went wide and wild. Her small mouth opened in a silent cry. Una froze. She understood. Someone had hurt this child. Someone had raised their hand and brought it down with pain. Now the cub expected the same from everyone. Una lowered her hand. She lowered it very slowly, keeping her movements soft. Then she did something strange. She did not stand over the child. She did not try to reach under the bed. She did not call for help or make loud sounds. She sat down on the floor. The floor was cold. Hard metal pressed against her legs. But she did not move. She sat with her back against the wall, a few feet away from the bed. The cub watched her. Una did not look directly at the child. She had learned that looking straight at a frightened Villani felt like a threat to them. So she looked at the wall instead. She breathed slowly. She made herself small and quiet. Minutes passed. 10, 20, 30. Una's legs started to hurt. Her back became stiff. But she did not move. The cub's breathing changed. It became slower, less afraid. 1 hour passed. Una heard a soft sound. She looked from the corner of her eye. The cub had moved. Just a little. She had crawled a few inches closer to the edge of the bed. Una stayed still. The cub watched her for a long time. Those golden eyes studied every part of her, looking for danger, looking for lies, looking for the raised hand that would surely come. It did not come. Una sat like a stone, patient, quiet, present. Another 30 minutes passed. The cub moved again. She was now at the very edge of the bed, her small head poking out from under the sheets. Her nose twitched. She was smelling Una, learning her scent. Una almost smiled. But she stopped herself. Showing teeth could be scary. The station made its usual sounds around them. Machines hummed. Footsteps echoed in distant halls. Voices spoke in languages from 100 worlds. But in this small corner, there was only silence and two hearts beating. Dohwan found her there 2 hours later. He was a medical officer, tall and kind. He stopped in the doorway and stared at Una sitting on the floor. "What are you doing?" he whispered. Una did not turn around. "Sitting," she said softly. Do-hwan looked at the cub under the bed. The small creature had fallen asleep. Her gray body was curled into a ball. She was still under the bed, but she was closer to Yuna now. Much closer than before. "She has no file," Do-hwan said quietly. "No name, no family records. She was found in the cargo hold of a rescue ship. No one knows who she is." Yuna nodded slowly. "An orphan. Alone in the universe. How long will you sit there?" Do-hwan asked. "As long as it takes." He looked at her with respect. Then he left without another word. The station moved through space. Stars turned slowly outside the windows. Refugees slept in their crowded rooms, dreaming of lost homes. And Yuna sat on the cold floor, watching over a child who had forgotten what safety felt like. More time passed. The cub woke up once, saw Yuna still sitting there, and watched her for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes again, 3 feet away. That was how close she was now. The child had moved 3 feet closer to a human she did not know. 3 feet closer to trust. 3 feet away from the darkness under the bed. It was not much, but it was everything. Yuna felt tears running down her face. She did not wipe them away. She did not want to raise her hand. This child had seen too much pain. She had learned that hands bring hurt. She had learned that adults bring fear. She had learned that the universe is cold and cruel. But Yuna would teach her something else. She would teach her that some hands do not hit. Some adults do not hurt. Some corners of the universe are warm. It would take time. A long time. There would be hard days ahead. There would be moments when the cub ran away. Moments when she screamed. Moments when Yuna would question everything. But for now, in this quiet moment, something important had happened. A frightened child had looked at a human and decided not to run. And a human had looked at a frightened child and decided to stay. The station hummed around them. The stars kept turning. And Yuna remained on the cold floor, perfectly still, keeping watch over a small gray cub who had finally found a moment of peace. Outside, the galaxy was full of war and fear. The Krath Dominion hunted survivors. Planets burned. Civilizations fell. But in this small room, on this cold floor, there was something stronger than all of that. There was patience. There was presence. There was love sitting quietly in the dark, asking for nothing, offering everything. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all. 3 weeks passed on the station. Yuna came to the same room every day. Same time, same place. She sat on the same spot on the cold floor. She never changed anything. The cub watched her from under the bed. Every day, those golden eyes followed her movements, looking, waiting, testing. Yuna brought food sometimes. Small pieces of dried meat that Vellani children liked. She did not offer them directly. She placed them on the floor, halfway between herself and the bed. Then she looked away. At first, the food stayed there. The cub was too scared to come out. But after 5 days, Yuna noticed the food was gone. She did not see the cub take it. She never looked. But it disappeared, and that was enough. She brought more food the next day. Yuna also started reading aloud. She found a book of old Earth stories. Fairy tales, they were called. Stories about children who got lost in forests. Stories about animals who could talk. Stories about magic and hope. She read in a soft voice. Never loud, never sudden. Just a gentle stream of words filling the quiet room. The cub seemed to like the sound. Her ears moved forward when Yuna read. That was a good sign. Vellani showed interest with their ears. One day, Do-hwan brought another person to meet Yuna. Her name was Yoonji. She was a child psychologist who had come from Earth. To help the refugees, Yoonji watched Yuna sit on the floor. She watched the cub hiding under the bed. You are doing the right thing, Yoonji said quietly. The Lani cubs need patience. They bond through presence, not touch. You cannot force trust. You can only offer it. Yuna nodded. She had guessed this, but it helped to hear it from someone who knew. How long? Yuna asked. Yunji shook her head. I cannot say. Some cubs take weeks. Some take months. Some never trust again. This one has been hurt very badly. But you are giving her the best chance. That night, Yuna sat longer than usual. She read 3 stories. When she finished the last one, she heard a small sound. The cub had moved to the edge of the bed. Her small face was visible now. Her golden eyes were looking at the book in Yuna's hands. Do you want me to read more? Yuna asked softly. The cub did not answer. But she did not run away either. Yun read another story. This one was about a butterfly who was lost in a storm. The butterfly found shelter under a leaf. It waited until the storm passed. Then it flew again. When Yuna finished, the cub's eyes were closed. She was asleep, still at the edge of the bed. Still visible, Yuna smiled very carefully, keeping her lips closed. Progress. The days continued. The cub came out from under the bed more often now. She still ran back if anyone else came near. She still flinched at loud sounds. But with Yuna, she was calmer. Captain Taiwu visited one afternoon. He was the station commander, a serious man with tired eyes. He looked at Yuna sitting on the floor and frowned. How long will this take? He asked. We have hundreds of children who need help. You spend all your time with one. This one needs me, Yuna said simply. The station is overcrowded. We need faster results. Yuna looked up at him. Her eyes were calm but firm. You cannot rush healing. If you try, you break what is already cracked. Taiwu stared at her for a long moment. Then he walked away without another word. A young nurse named Bora started helping Yuna. She brought clean sheets and better food. She kept other people away from the room. She understood without being told. She is lucky to have you, Bora said one day. Yuna shook her head. I am lucky to have her. That evening, something happened. Yuna was reading the butterfly story again. The cub seemed to like that one best. Her ears always moved forward during the part where the butterfly found shelter. When Yuna finished reading, she closed the book. She sat in silence, looking at the wall. A small voice spoke. Stay. Yuna's heart stopped. She turned her head very slowly. The cub was looking at her. Those golden eyes were wide and serious. Stay, the cub said again. It was the first word she had spoken in weeks. Maybe longer. Her voice was rough and small, like something that had not been used in a very long time. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. I will stay, she said. I promise. The cub watched her face. Looking for lies. Looking for the trick. She found nothing but truth. The cub moved closer. She was only 2 feet away now. Her small body was still tense, ready to run. But she did not run. Yuna kept her promise. She stayed until the cub fell asleep. Then she stayed longer. She stayed until morning. But the next day brought bad news. Dowan came running into the room. His face was pale. There is a message, he said. From the Krath Dominion. Yuna stood up slowly. What do they want? They want the Villani back. All of them. They say the refugees are escaped property. They are demanding the Galactic Council surrender them. Yuna felt cold. Property. They called living people property. What did the council say? Dowan shook his head. They are debating. Many species do not want war with the Krath. Some are saying we should give the refugees back. The news spread through the station like fire. Refugees gathered in the halls, crying and holding each other. The fear was thick enough to taste. The cub sensed it. Even though she did not understand the words, She felt the fear in the air. The adults were scared. That meant danger was coming. She ran back under the bed. Yuna watched her disappear into the shadows. Her heart ached. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She sat down on the floor again. Same spot, same position. She sat there all night, not moving, not speaking. The cub stayed under the bed, but her golden eyes never left Yuna's face. Outside, the galaxy argued about the lives of children. Inside, a human woman sat on a cold floor, keeping a promise she had made to a child who had forgotten what promises meant. The storm was coming. Everyone could feel it, but Yuna would not leave. She would sit on this floor until the stars burned out. She would stay, because that was what she had promised, and humans keep their promises. The Galactic Council met on a world far from the refugee station. 1,000 species sent their voices to this great hall. They spoke in different languages, but machines translated everything. The Krath commander was named Varax. He was tall and dark, with sharp teeth and cold eyes. He stood before the council without fear. "The Vallani belong to us," Varax said. "They are escaped property. We demand their return. This is not a request. It is an order." Many species in the council looked at each other with worried eyes. The Krath Dominion was powerful. They had 1,000 warships. They had conquered many worlds. Nobody wanted to fight them. One by one, speakers rose to suggest surrender. Perhaps the Vallani could be returned quietly. Perhaps the council could avoid war. Perhaps it was not their problem. Then a human stood up. His name was Hyunsik. He was an ambassador from Earth. Humans were a young species, small and weak, compared to the great powers of the galaxy. They had barely 100 warships. They had only known about alien life for 50 years, but Hyunsik spoke anyway. "We have a word on Earth," he said. His voice was calm but clear. "The word is sanctuary. It means a place where the hunted become safe, where the broken are allowed to heal, where children can sleep without fear." The council listened. Varax watched with narrow eyes. "You ask us to return children to their killers," Hyunsik continued. "You ask us to call living people property. You ask us to look away while innocents suffer." He paused. The hall was silent. "We refuse." Varax laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You refuse? Little humans? What will you do? Fight us?" Hyunsik looked at the Krath commander. There was no fear in his eyes. "If we must." The council erupted in noise. Species shouted at each other. Some supported the humans. Many thought they were fools. The Krath delegation left in anger, promising consequences. But the human word spread across the galaxy. Recordings of Hyunsik's speech were shared on every world. Species who had never thought about humans suddenly knew their name. Back on the station, life continued. Yuna heard about the speech on the news. She smiled for the first time in days. The cub had come out from under the bed again. She was still scared. She still flinched at loud sounds. But she seemed to understand that Yuna was different. Yuna was safe. Every day, Yuna sat on the floor. Every day, the cub came a little closer. One afternoon, Yuna was moving some equipment in the room. She was carrying a heavy box. She stepped on something slippery and fell. The box crashed against her arm. Pain shot through her body. She cried out. For a moment, she lay on the floor, holding her injured arm. It was not broken, but it hurt badly. Then she felt something. Small paws on her face. She opened her eyes. The cub was standing over her. Those golden eyes were wide with worry. The cub's small hands pressed against Yuna's cheek. "Hurt?" the cub asked. Yuna stared at her. The cub had come to her. The cub had touched her. For the first time, the frightened child had reached out on her own. Yuna felt tears rolling down her face. "I am okay," she said softly. "I am okay." The cub did not move away. She stayed close, her small body tense but present. She was checking on Yuna. She was worried about her. Something had changed. Dowan found them like that. Yuna on the floor, holding her bruised arm. The cub beside her, small paws still touching her face. He did not say anything. He just stood in the doorway, watching with wet eyes. Later, Yunji bandaged Yuna's arm. "You made a connection," she said. "A real one. She cares about you now." "She was scared for me," Yuna said. "She thought I was hurt." "That is love," Yunji said simply. "That is what love looks like." But the good moment did not last long. That night, Captain Taiwu called everyone to the main hall. His face was gray and tired. "The Krath have given an ultimatum," he said. "They want all Valani refugees surrendered within 7 days. If we refuse, they will attack." The refugees cried out in fear. Children screamed. Parents held their little ones close. "What will the council do?" someone asked. Taiwu shook his head. "The council is still debating. Many want to surrender. Many are afraid." "And Earth?" Yuna asked. "What does Earth say?" Taiwu looked at her. Something like pride flickered in his tired eyes. "Earth says no. The human government has ordered all military ships to this sector. They are coming to protect the station." Silence fell over the hall. "How many ships?" Dowan asked. "Every ship we have," Taiwu said. 97 warships. Our entire fleet. 97 ships. Against the Krath Dominion, which had thousands. It was suicide. Everyone knew it, but the humans were coming anyway. The news spread through the station like warmth after a long, cold night. Refugees looked at the human staff with new eyes. These small, strange creatures from the blue planet were going to fight for them. These weak people were going to stand against an empire. Why? The Vellani were not human. They had different bodies, different culture, different history. They came from a different star, but the humans came anyway. Yuna returned to her room. The cub was waiting for her, sitting on the floor where Yuna usually sat. "Yuna," the cub said. It was the first time she had spoken Yuna's name. Yuna knelt down. "Yes? Ships coming?" "Yes, human ships. They are coming to help." The cub looked at her with those deep golden eyes. Why? Yuna thought about the question. Why did humans help strangers? Why did they risk their lives for people they had never met? "Because you are worth it," Yuna said. "Because every child deserves to be safe. Because some things are more important than being afraid." The cub was quiet for a long time. Then she moved forward and pressed her small body against Yuna's side. It was the first hug. The first real contact. Yuna held very still. She did not raise her arms. She did not squeeze. She just let the cub lean against her, feeling her warmth, hearing her heartbeat. Outside, warships were moving through space. Humans were leaving their families, their homes, their safe lives. They were flying toward a battle they could not win. But on a cold floor, in a small room, on a station full of fear, a human and a child sat together. And that was why the ships were coming. That was what humans do. The Krath fleet arrived on the 7th day. From the station windows, Yuna could see them. Dark ships, hundreds of them, spreading across the stars like a disease. They were huge and terrible. They blocked out the light. Against them, the human fleet looked like toys. 97 small ships, forming a thin line between the Krath and the station. It was impossible. Everyone knew it. The humans would die, but they did not move. Captain Taiwu ordered an evacuation. Transport ships began loading refugees. People ran through the halls, crying and pushing. Children screamed for their parents. The station shook with fear. Doan found Yuna in her room. "You need to leave," he said. "The evacuation transports are filling up fast." Yuna shook her head. "I am staying. The Krath will attack. The station could be destroyed. Then I will be destroyed with it." Doan stared at her. "Why?" Yuna looked at the cub. The small creature was pressed against her side, trembling. She understood enough to be afraid. She knew something terrible was coming. "Because I promised," Yuna said. "I told her I would stay. I am not leaving." Doan was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down on the floor beside her. "Then I am staying too," he said. Bora came later. She did not say anything. She just sat on the other side of the room, watching the cub with gentle eyes. Yunji arrived with a bag of medical supplies. "Someone needs to look after the children who cannot leave," she said. "That someone is me." They stayed. 4 humans and 1 small cub, sitting in a room while the galaxy prepared for war. The battle began at dawn. Yuna did not see it directly, but she heard the sounds. Explosions in the distance. Alarms crying through the station. The deep hum of weapons firing. The station shook. Lights flickered. Somewhere, metal groaned. The cub buried her face in Yuna's shirt. Her small body shook with silent sobs. Yuna held her. She raised her arms slowly, carefully, and wrapped them around the trembling child. It was the first time she had held her. "I am here," Yuna whispered. "I am not going anywhere." The battle continued. Hours passed. The station kept shaking. Then something strange happened. Taiwu's voice came over the speakers. He sounded confused, hopeful, shocked. "Other ships are arriving," he said. "Ships from other species. They are joining the humans." Yuna looked up. "What?" More voices came over the radio. Different languages. Different species. But the message was the same. A captain from the Renari people said, "We cannot live with ourselves if we abandon children." A commander from the Holoth world said, "The humans showed us what courage looks like. We are ashamed we did not stand with them sooner." A civilian transport from the Yem Federation said, "We have no weapons, but we can shield the station with our bodies." Ships kept coming, dozens, then hundreds. Merchants and soldiers. Scientists and explorers. Old ships and new. A ragged fleet of those who could not watch innocent people die. The Krath hesitated. They had expected to crush the humans easily. They had not expected the galaxy to wake up. They had not expected so many to stand. Inside the station, refugees crowded around screens, watching the battle. Valani parents held their children and wept. Not from fear this time. From hope. Yuna held the cub tighter. "Do you see?" She whispered. "Do you see what is happening?" The cub looked up at her with wet golden eyes. "Friends?" "Yes," Yuna said, crying and laughing at the same time. "Friends. So many friends." The battle paused. The Krath sent a message, demanding surrender one final time. The human commander replied with one word, "No." The cub suddenly pulled back from Yuna's arms. She looked at Yuna's face with a serious expression. Something was changing in those golden eyes. Something deep and important. "I name myself," the cub said. Yuna's heart stopped. In Villani culture, orphans who had no parents to name them could choose their own names. It was a declaration. A choice to live. A choice to have a future. "What name?" Yuna asked softly. The cub was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "Nabi." Yuna felt the tears falling faster now. Nabi. It was a Korean word. It meant butterfly. She had read the story so many times. The butterfly who survived the storm. "Nabi," Yuna repeated. "That is a beautiful name." Nabi pressed herself back into Yuna's arms. This time, she did not tremble. She held on with strength. "My name," she said firmly. "My choice." Outside, the craft made their decision. They withdrew. Their fleet turned and began to fly away. They had come to claim property. They had found an army instead. Not an army of weapons, but an army of hearts. Too many hearts to fight. The station erupted. Refugees cheered. Families embraced. Some fell to their knees and wept. Others laughed until they could not breathe. Una sat on the floor, Nabi in her arms. The small cub was asleep now, exhausted from fear and crying and hope. Her gray fur was wet with tears, but her face was peaceful. Dowan put his hand on Una's shoulder. "We did it," he said quietly. Una shook her head. "Not we, everyone. The whole galaxy did it together." "But humans started it," Bora said. "Humans said no first." Una looked down at Nabi's sleeping face. The child who had flinched at every raised hand. The child who had hidden under a bed for weeks. The child who had forgotten what safety felt like. Now she slept in a human's arms, trusting completely. "We just sat on the floor," Una said. "We just stayed. But that was enough." That was everything. The stars turned outside the windows. Ships from 100 worlds hung in space, protecting a station full of refugees. And in a small room, a human woman held a child who had finally found her name. The storm had come, but the butterfly had survived. 1 year had passed since the battle. The galaxy had changed. Not in big ways that everyone could see, but in small ways that mattered more. Species talked to each other differently now. They remembered the day when 100 worlds stood together for children who were not their own. The Villani had a new home. The human government had offered them a planet, a small green world with forests and rivers, similar to the one they had lost. They called it New Velen. It was not the same as their old home. Nothing could ever be the same. But it was theirs, and it was safe. Una stood on a hill, looking at the sunset. The sky was orange and pink, painted with colors she had never seen on Earth. Trees with silver leaves swayed in the warm wind. In the valley below, a new city was growing. Villani families were building homes. Children played in the streets. Nabi stood beside her, holding her hand. The small cub was not so small anymore. She had grown taller over the year. Her gray fur was clean and shiny. Her golden eyes were bright and curious. She still flinched sometimes when sounds were too loud or movements too fast. But less than before, much less dot, she was healing. Slowly, carefully, one day at a time. Just like Una had promised. "Pretty," Nabi said, watching the sunset. "Yes," Una agreed. "Very pretty." They stood together in comfortable silence. A year ago, Nabi could not speak. Now she talked constantly, asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? What do fish think about? How do spaceships fly? Can butterflies dream? Una answered every question, even the ones she did not know the answer to. Those were the best questions, because they could learn together. A message had come from Earth last week. The Xenobiology Institute wanted Una back. They offered her a prestigious position, good salary, important research, a chance to shape the future of human science. Una had refused. She did not explain why. She did not need to. Everyone who knew her understood. Her home was here now. Her family was here. The adoption had been complicated. No human had ever adopted a Villani child before. New laws had to be written. New forms had to be created. Politicians argued about it. Scientists studied it. News reporters talked about it for weeks. But in the end, it happened. Under both human and Villani law, Nabi became Una's daughter. Officially, permanently, forever. The paperwork had taken 6 months. The love had taken about 3 seconds. Today was a special day. A monument was being unveiled in the center of New Velen. The whole planet had gathered to watch. Yuna and Nabi walked down the hill together. They joined the crowd in the main square. Thousands of Velani stood around a covered statue. Human visitors stood among them. So did representatives from the other species who had helped in the battle. Captain Taiwu was there, retired now, looking healthier than he had on the station. Dohwan stood with his new wife, a Velani doctor he had met during the refugee crisis. Bora had become a famous nurse, known across the galaxy for her gentle care. Yunji was writing a book about trauma and healing. Ambassador Hyunsik stood on the stage. He was older now, his hair turning gray, but his eyes were still sharp and kind. He spoke to the crowd. 1 year ago, the galaxy faced a choice. We could look away from suffering, or we could stand together. Many chose to stand. Many risked everything for people they had never met. He paused, looking at the covered statue. This monument lists every species and every ship that came to protect this people. But I want to speak about something else. Something smaller. The crowd was silent. I want to speak about a woman who sat on a cold floor, who stayed with a frightened child, who did not raise her hand in anger, who taught us all what strength really looks like. Yuna felt her face grow hot. Nabi squeezed her hand. Humans are not strong, Hyunsik continued. We are not the fastest or the smartest. We do not have the best ships or the biggest armies. But we have something else. We have the ability to sit with pain, to stay when it is hard, to love what is broken until it becomes whole. He looked directly at Yuna. That is what makes us human. That is what we offered the galaxy. Not our weapons, our patience, our presence, our stubborn, foolish, beautiful refusal to give up on each other. The statue was unveiled. It showed a human hand reaching down toward a small alien child. But the hand was not raised to strike. It was open, offering, waiting. Beneath the statue were carved words in 100 languages. They all said the same thing. The ones who sit on the floor. The ones who stay. Nabi looked up at Yuna. That is you, she said. Yuna shook her head. That is us. That is everyone who chose to stay. The ceremony ended. Families began to leave, talking and laughing. Children ran between the adults, playing games. The sun sank lower, painting everything in gold. Yuna and Nabi walked to the edge of the city. They found a quiet place, a small hill with soft grass, and sat down together. Nabi leaned against Yuna's shoulder. She was tired from the long day. Her eyes were getting heavy. Yuna, she said sleepily. Yes? I love you. Yuna felt her heart expand, filling with warmth. I love you too, Nabi, more than all the stars. The cub closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. She was falling asleep safe and warm in her mother's arms. Yuna held her gently. She did not need to be careful anymore. She could raise her hands now. She could hug and hold and touch. Nabi was not afraid. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were. They had asked the question after the battle, when the impossible had happened. What kind of species stands against an empire for children they have never met? Now they had an answer. Humans were the ones who sat on cold floors. The ones who read stories to frighten children. The ones who kept promises even when it hurt. The ones who stayed. Nabi stirred in her sleep. Her small hand reached up and took Yuna's. Oh, she murmured. Yuna smiled, tears running down her cheeks. Home, she agreed. The stars came out above them, one by one. 1,000,000 suns burning in the darkness. Somewhere out there, species were telling stories about humans. About the day they stood against an empire. About the woman who sat on the floor. But here, on this small hill, on this green world, under these gentle stars, none of that mattered. What mattered was a mother and daughter, sitting together, What mattered was a frightened child who had learned to trust. What mattered was love, patient and quiet and stronger than any weapon. The butterfly had survived the storm, and she had found her home.